in so many relationship breakdowns at work, I see people desperate to have an honest conversation, maybe to air concerns that they have, to try to help someone understand something, to share how they're feeling, or maybe to explore a different perspective and alternative solutions to something. Honest conversations are often what is needed to avoid or repair these breakdowns in communication. And yet, do you ever find that being honest at work is sometimes easier said than done? Or maybe that honesty tends to inflame what is actually already a difficult situation. People often fall into some sticky traps when trying to communicate with honesty at work. Over many years, I've had my fair share of bloopers in this terrain, and I've noticed that so often people seem to stumble into 3 common mistakes when trying to simply be honest with their colleagues. More often than not, these slip-ups can make a constructive dialogue far less likely rather than more likely. So, what are these 3 predictable pitfalls? How can you avoid them? And how can you make the honest conversations you need to have less damaging and more constructive? So, number 1, the first predictable pitfall of honesty at work is labelling people. If you label, evaluate, judge or pigeonhole someone, it has very likely negative consequences. So what do I mean by labelling people? Here are some examples. Unkind, kind. Selfish, caring. Greedy, generous. Lazy, controlling. Rude, respectful. Dishonest, honest. An energy sapper. Inspirational. A bully. A victim. The consequences of using these words about other people are very unlikely to help in building or repairing effective relationships. Why? Well, it leads to people really putting a lot of energy into chasing positive labels and avoiding the negative labels, which leads to a culture of trying to seek each other's approval and avoiding at all costs each other's disapproval. This then means that choices and actions are based on what will people think of me, rather than on what is the right thing for me to do right now. And all of this makes authentic human connection extremely difficult to achieve, and it skews and warps relationships into unhealthy power dynamics. So what would you potentially do instead? Well, this is an example of trying being more lovingly honest. Wherever you can, avoiding these evaluations of people, these judgments, labels and pigeonholes, criticisms and compliments about other people, focusing less on what you think of other people and more on what you and they are feeling and what you need. So letting go of this habit of constantly assessing other people as good or bad, right or wrong. And then practicing spotting my tendency to potentially demonise other people or idolise other people, because they're both equally problematic. So that's the first predictable pitfall of honesty. Number 2, implying bad intentions. So what might this sound like? Well, it might be things like, you're trying to cause trouble. You're trying to upset the apple cart. You're trying to show me up, so on and so forth. Suggesting that the person is behaving with a deliberate intention to make something bad happen for you. The consequences if you assume and imply bad intentions are likely to include people taking offence, withdrawing cooperation, losing trust in you, or wanting to retaliate, which then escalates the whole thing. And these responses move you further apart rather than closer together. So, instead of inferring or implying bad intent, try being more lovingly honest. So consider the possibility that any negative impact is unintentional on their part. If this person is humanly fallible or vulnerable, like most of us are, is this maybe the best they can do right now? Is this the best they can offer? Remind yourself that if they could do any better, they probably would. And with this in mind, how might you approach the situation slightly differently? How could you offer benefit of the doubt towards this person unless you're proven otherwise? And number 3, the third predictable pitfall that people often fall into when they're trying to be honest at work is making demands of other people about how they should be changing. If demanding things from people and telling them what to do all the time and how they should change is your default way of interacting, then the consequences are likely to include things like people being reluctant to take responsibility for themselves and their actions on the basis of, I was told to do it. They told me I had to do this. It nurtures and creates a culture of permission seeking, of adult-child dynamics, of dependency on the people doing the telling. And that leads to people losing their sense of autonomy, agency, and initiative. So instead, try being more lovingly honest. Practice expressing what you need and making clear requests of other people rather than demands. And with a request, they can say yes or they can say no. You're offering them a choice. Balance this with what the other person needs, your own needs with what they need, and what their requests of you are. So it becomes a reciprocal, how can I help you? How can you help me? What do I need in this? And what do you need in this? Respect that you or they might not be willing or able to meet each other's needs and requests. So this approach honestly outlines your own needs and requests while also considering the needs and requests of other people. It has that mutual reciprocal helping at its heart, which is why it's part of the skill set of being lovingly honest. So those are the 3 predictable pitfalls that often tangle teams and colleagues up when they're trying to have more honest, transparent, open conversations about stuff that really matters. To dive deeper into how you can make honest conversations more effective and less damaging, subscribe and follow me at BeTheCultureChange. I look forward to bringing you more insights and practical ways to improve your relationships, your influence, and the wider culture at work. See you soon.